Yeah, this is a slightly unusual Collectors Connect, which we do every month here at the Watch Collectors Club, because rather than just chatting about all the watch topics that come up, as we usually chat about each month, today we're going to review our recent trip to Watches and Wonders. And to sort of kick it off, rather than me monologuing, I thought, Ed, you could start by just giving us two or three of your absolute highlights from the 3 days you were in Geneva.
Absolutely. So I think highlight number one was actually all the little things that happen around the city that would be sort of difficult to justify otherwise. So the ACHI, the Academy of
AHCI.
AHCI, the Academy of Independent Watchmakers, put together this wonderful little mini show where they have sort of 10 to 15
Mm.
very high end but tiny production um, brands, and the opportunity to see what people are doing kind of right at the cutting edge of making really fancy watches was really special, and to meet the watchmakers as well. So I got to meet Sven Anderson, who is wonderful, Raoul Page, really nice chap with a really beautiful watch. So that was fantastic. The second thing was the surprises that some of the kind of bigger brands pulled out. So Hermes was one of my favorite kind of behind the scenes sessions, and Le Temps Suspendu, I think I've got that right, the suspended time watch was probably my favorite watch of the show. And for two reasons. One, lovely whimsical complication that is not useful at all, as I think all good complications should be. But secondly, just a watch that it felt very well designed, sort of a complete design. It was very comfortable to wear, but it was very sharp and it was sort of beautifully finished. And then I think the third and final thing was it's really nice to experience it with other people. So when Hamish and I went the first year, we kind of organised for a bunch of other people to come with us, and it was really fun, and it's definitely makes the event kind of more manageable because it's quite an overwhelming kind of watch sensation. Otherwise, you've got tens of thousands of people there each day. It's quite hard work. So enjoying that with other people was really fun.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree with you on all those points. I think I love the scale of it. So I like the fact that it's the whole industry or a large part of the industry coming together to all present in the same week. Um,
Mm.
because otherwise the industry is, hugely dispersed and fragmented. And, at best you might go to a retailer with 10 brands in it. But when you go to these shows, whether it's the Watches and Wonders show or the Time to Watches show, which was next door, or these uh, smaller places we went to, you're still able to see a lot in a short space of time and really allows you to explore and, as you said, Ed, to really understand what's going on in the industry.
Mm.
Um, which, some people have the thing that they enjoy and that's all they care about. But if you're interested in the industry as a whole and um, different parts of it, it's a really great way to see what's going on and understand it a bit more. Because the other thing I like is all the people from the brands are so enthusiastic and positive. They are there to do a job, and the job is to present the brand, the story, the watch, or the watches, and the newness, and they all do it really well. Despite the effort and the number of days they have to do it in a row, and the number of times they must be having the same conversation and saying the same thing. It's really great to see people doing that, and when they're passionate about it, and when they really care, and when they're on form. At the big show, what I quite like is that people from different parts of the company are there for the week or a few days, or they bring in their best salespeople. We had a lady at Tag Heuer from Madrid, and she was like perfect. She was perfectly enthusiastic and really keen on the brand and an experienced salesperson, and you could tell, and it made a difference, and we really enjoyed that. So I think, as we all know, or those of us who are lucky enough to have built a relationship with a salesperson somewhere and really appreciated and enjoyed that, even though you're at the show and with these people for a small amount of time, you can have that experience. So I really enjoyed that.
I think they were um, more enthusiastic this year than last year. And I don't know if that means the brands were sort of better at managing people's times, but in the previous time we went, the teams just look so exhausted by the Saturday, all like really burnt out because they've been doing these really long days. And I don't know whether they were sort of cycling through stuff a
Mm.
little bit more, but yeah, everybody was enthusiastic and excited to be part of this kind of Disneyland of watches.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Another highlight for me, which was not related to the show, but I was delighted to be able to arrange, was going to Madhouse, which is the manufacturing facility for MB&F, which is this crazy high horology brand which make kind of steampunk, kind of technical watches with really crazy inspirations and complicated movements. And what was wonderful about going there was really seeing the culture of the brand, totally embodied in the building and in the artwork and the objects. There were all these crazy clocks everywhere, and even in the tour guide. So the tour guide did a wonderful job with our group, which was like 15 people, and he was like cracking jokes and taking the piss out of various watchmakers and members of staff the whole time. And he really sort of gave a great flavor of the brand. And they make very, very expensive watches. But what I do know is if we'd been like two people who were quite sort of quiet and smartly dressed, he would have given us a very different tour. He probably would have really focused on some of the technology they developed and really focused a bit more on the process. Whereas because we were a big group, it was Watches and Wonders Week. He was able to deal with that really well and make sure that we all got a really good sense of the brand. And I think that's the other thing about going to Geneva in this week versus how we see watches the rest of the time is this is the absolute essence of the brand and the essence of the watch. And we came across that a number of times. But whatever the resources and the space that the companies had and the watchmakers had and the brand representatives had, they really almost all did a great job of getting the brand across. And I think that's what I really enjoy. So like for those who don't know me that well, my passion for watches is history and brand and heritage and design. I'm not really that fussed about the technology and the movements and the complexity of movement numbers and detail like that. So I really enjoy having the brand represent themselves to me and seeing how they do it. Now, as you said, we went to Hermes, we also went to Mont Blanc and Tag Heuer, and all those three experiences were so different. And even though they're trying to do the same thing, they're trying to tell us about their new watches. The experience we had was really representative of each brand and really enjoyably different in each case. It's like we're not talking about shopping here. We're not talking about going into an AD in London. We're not talking about going into a multi-brand. We're not talking about going to the duty free. We're not at the airport to look at a watch. We're talking about the real essence of a brand presenting itself in a way that you can't experience really anywhere else in the same way. So I think that's what makes it so fun for me. A lot of people saying to me, oh, it's a really difficult thing to organize, and I'm like, well, it's tricky to organize. It's fun to do, but what I really love is having that experience of having the completely different types of brand back to back, and because I get to arrange it, I arrange it so it's like that, and so we have that contrast. Um, and I think again, this kind of trip is the perfect place to do it, and that's what makes me enjoy it so much, as well as you said, doing it with other people. So if two of the people on the call came with us to Geneva, so would either Rata or Junaid like to chime in with a couple of your highlights?
Yeah, definitely. I can jump in. So for me, the highlights of the entire 4 days was first of all, when it comes to Watches and Wonders, the big show, it was the smoothness and the way they grew the show and how pleasant it was, to just be there. Because for me, because I was there 2 years ago when it was the first year for the public access, and comparing those two is a day and night, getting in, luggage storage, all these sort of little things that you want to go smoothly because you just want to get in and start looking at watches, So all of that has massively improved. And sort of the brands followed as well with the way they, as you said, as they approach the clients and the general public on those public days. Uh, Obviously, there's been a lot of growth in terms of how many tickets they're selling and all that. I think that's a different topic, but generally, the show tries to be better each year, and I think they're definitely working on it. You can see that. Second highlight is Geneva as a whole, as a city. it really comes alive in that week, and you can really feel it, and you can really experience, I think, why Switzerland is so good at making watches, how they sort of build up the infrastructure and all these sort of supporting companies that are able to do stuff, because you can see how the actual watchmakers network and how they mingle, and that why those collaborations happen, because they just know each other, and they live so close to each other, and they're sort of able to give a little bit of production here and there, and yeah, so you can really get to understand why that's possible.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to my friend about the trip last night, and I was saying how people in Geneva, like a lot of people don't like Geneva, and they think it's a very boring place. But if you go in the week where it has its biggest festival and an exhibition, and everybody who's going there that week is there to be excited about the same thing, then it's not boring at all. It's like a really great place to go.
Yeah. I think come Tuesday, it's boring again. It well may be. And the third big point for me was access, because we were the group, as you mentioned, and there's power in that, and we were definitely able to see stuff that we wouldn't be able to see when we were on our own, or either difficult, or just be a lot of tension, be just when there's like a just attention on you as one person coming in sitting with the brand, all of the sort of nervousness can disperse, and you can really focus on what you're there to focus on. For you, Hamish, it may be the history and all that, and the brand presenting itself. For me, it's more the technical side and the sort of higher end stuff of the market, and that's where I sort of appreciate stuff. So yeah, you can really pick and choose, and the way the trip was organized as well, you can sort of opt in and out of different activities with the club as well. So you can really organize some appointments yourself if you really want to see something that's not on the schedule, or you just want to have a little breather and just take a few hours off the full list, and then rejoin the group. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's exactly how we try and set it up for you. Um, so I guess the next and sort of obvious question is, what could we have done slightly differently? So one thing that I think, we were, I'll start with is we weren't actually expecting to have so many people want to come with us this year. So we had 25 in the group, and it was great. I mean, it was fantastic to have 25 people, and the group was amazing. We had people from America, India, Switzerland, the UK, many of whom we'd never met before, and everybody was great. But it was a big group to take round. So I think the obvious thing to do next year is have break the whole number, however many people we end up wanting to come, we break that down into small groups. And what that will mean, rather straightforwardly, is organizing more appointments, which is on me, and then have people opt into those appointments more explicitly. So that's certainly something that I'll look to do next year. Junaid, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add my 20 pence worth about the show, my experience of the show, because I think
Yeah.
I come from a slightly different angle. So sorry, I'm interrupting your flow there, but this was my first time at Watches and Wonders, and to be honest, I've recently only got interested into sort of joining a community, and I can't remember how I got to know about you guys, but somehow I did. I'm really grateful because I mean it was an amazing experience for me because I'm still reminiscing about it, a couple of weeks down the line, how great it was. I think the first thing about great that was great about it was meeting all the other fellow watch enthusiasts,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's what I enjoyed the most about it because you follow forums and you watch YouTube videos and there's just somebody out there that likes some watches and they have those watches, but this was real. This was like actual people that I could meet and talk to about having watches on their wrists that they were interested in, and I could really know about why they loved that watch, and I could like how they related to what was special about that watch, and
Yep.
And I don't know, it just made that a little bit real, having real people around me with similar interests. Might be different watches and different price points and different brands, but the passion was the same. So it was really good to share that with people, with other like-minded people there. So I think that was the first thing I really enjoyed, and knowing that, and also that the fact that they were watch enthusiasts of all levels as well, not all AP owners and Patek Philippe owners, and there was like studio underdogs being born and things like that. So that was great. The show itself, I think my first this was my first proper sort of introduction to the independents after the Manchester show that you guys did back in November. But I think this was, I don't know, this was like independent on steroids. So was really good. I think before we hit Watches and Wonders and got to see the suits and the ties, really just the guys with their sleeves rolled up, and the proprietors and the people who made the brand passionate about their own baby and why the watches they thought they were so great. Just really that for me, I mean, it was an eye opener to me about how many great independents are out there, and what amazing watches are attainable, for the price of one Rolex that you might run after for 10 years. You can actually make a whole collection and be in love with it. So that was great. Got to know some really good brands. It broadened my interest about not just about the what brands are out there, but what kind of watches are out there, complications. I mean, I'm not well versed about the technological and the historical part of horology, but it was a bit of an eye opener for me. So I think it's broadened my interest into more than what I think I was in a place where I didn't know what I didn't know, but now there's a lot more for me to look into. So that was great. One of the biggest highlight was the MBNF. I'm echoing what you guys have said. It was amazing to see how the watches were actually made, and it wasn't what I expected it to be, like some middle-aged engineers, in white laboratory style attire making watches. It was actually like a small family. I could imagine. I mean, I've worked with companies like that in the past. It's been a little family. There's no different to working in a different work environment, but they're just passionate about watches and making watches. And again, it just made that real. And yeah, the sessions with likes of Mont Blanc, how nice they were in presenting the brand and the watches to us, how personal they made it. It wasn't snobby. It wasn't about selling watches. It was really about sharing their passion, and that ignited, my interest in their brand and some of the watches that they do, which I never would have if they hadn't portrayed themselves like that. That how they built that relationship was brilliant. I missed out on some of the city activities, unfortunately, because we stayed well outside of the city. We couldn't find a hotel or an Airbnb in the city. But next time, hopefully, we'll take part in some of that. But yeah, absolutely brilliant. You guys did a great job in organizing that, and really looking forward to seeing what you guys have next time.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's great to hear that, because the Watch Collectors Club is about helping people explore. It's about helping people see what they didn't know was there. Exactly as you said, really open your mind and allowing you to really explore your taste and what you want to add next, and not just now, but in future, and what you want to go and learn more about, and hopefully we can help with that. But it's funny to just put a bit more flesh on the Mont Blanc example for people who might not appreciate what we're talking about when we're speaking so positively about the experience. So they built this kind of like lounge, is what it was, and this is a temporary stand inside a conference, right? So for anyone who hasn't got a good picture, right? Imagine like a big shopping mall, and then you go in, and instead of it being a shop, the front bit is like presentation of their watches, and it's kind of Mont Blanc, so it's all like mountain style, right? Like Alpine, because a lot of their watches are based on literal mountains. And then behind that, the private area, which is where we took the group in, is this wood paneled lounge that looks like it's been there for about 100 years.
Mhm.
With beautiful like couches that we sat on, and then we all got drinks like champagne or coffee or whatever we wanted. And then our presentation was from the managing director of the watch department of Mont Blanc. So obviously Mont Blanc, the bigger company, has the other departments as well, like pens and leather goods and things. But this was the managing director of the whole watch department. He was, beautifully dressed. He had on these shoes that people noticed, and
Mhm.
when people asked him where his shoes were from, he got really embarrassed because they were actually bespoke shoes.
But really humble guy. You're a really humble guy. That's what I
And so
loved about it.
he was sort of very flattered, but also like, don't look at the shoes. We're talking about watches, which was very funny.
Mhm.
And maybe he feared that if he opened his mouth about his shoes, he'd talk about them for 10 minutes. But yeah, he then gave us, as you say, like this really great, really well pitched um, presentation of the high horology that they had from their Minerva brand, which again is like totally underappreciated in the watch industry, totally underappreciated. They're fantastic watches. They've got amazing design inspiration from the brand's own history, and they really have this ethos. And they don't make very many watches at all, and they have the single watchmaker manufacturer and all that. So one day, hopefully, we'll be able to go to Minerva, the workshop, because it sounds like that visit would be really fantastic as well. But yeah, it's it is really great to have that, and as a group, because yeah, it's not awkward. There's no pressure. He's giving a presentation. Yes, you have to be patient, get to have a look at the watch and things like that. But it was just comfortable. It was very comfortable,
Yeah.
and very enjoyable experience. And as you say, like from Mont Blanc's point of view, why do all this? Why spend all that money on this temporary but amazing lounge? It's so that people do have that reaction. It's so that they say, okay, well, I'd never considered this before, and now I'm going to look out for it over the next however long months or years and really look more into what they're doing. And again, that's all we're trying to do, and I'm trying to do with the club is is say, well, look, there's a lot of amazing watches in the world, from, as you said, Studio Underdog right up to high horology. Um, let's go and have a look at them. Let's talk about them. Let's enjoy them. Let's see what other people think about them. So yeah, no, thanks for saying all that.
Okay, I just want to expand on that, Hamish, because the Minerva that we saw, most of that is sold out, and that brings me to a point where uh, we this gave us access to see watches that were already sold out
Mm.
because they will be probably all booked out by the retailers during the week, or or just basically it's already been sold out. So you can actually see stuff that you'll never be able to see again. I think that's one of the biggest added value in terms of the product handling, that you are actually able to see. And it can be like, okay, maybe use the Patek Philippe desk clock that they made, they sort of presented it there. You can't really touch it, you can't handle it, but you can see it there, and you'll never see it again, you know. And it's the same with the Grand Complications, and all of this. And then, but we were actually able to handle watches which were already sold out. So technically, the brands didn't even have to, like,
No.
that's it. But they did, and they went, they gave us their best as they would with anyone else.
Maybe we'll set Hamish an edit challenge for next time and see if they can get us to handle some Pateks at the Patek stand.
Nope, not taking that one on.
Don't get your hopes up.
I wouldn't expect you to.
There is a caveat. If between now and then we can find someone to come with us who is already an enormous client of theirs, then they may be
Hmm.
gracious enough to let some other people go and have a presentation alongside them as the client. So there you go. That's the
We could
Possibility.
we'll cobble together the money between us all just to whip round and try and buy something fancy from them.
because again, it's worth saying because people don't know it, but all of these brands invite all of their top clients. So every brand who's presenting in the city that week, of however many hundreds of brands that is, they all make sure that they personally invite all their very best VIP clients to come and see them that week. Obviously, no brand expects all their clients to turn up, and they don't. And so each year, a small percentage of their top clients will make the effort and go. And as Vata says, Mont Blanc, they kind of do sell most of their watches. And interestingly, Mont Blanc sell pens all week there, even though it's a watch show, because it's the best place to bring certain clients to experience the new writing instruments that they've made for the year. And then but every other brand, including Patek Philippe, and everyone else who's there, Cartier, Cartier has like the biggest space of all in the big show to present its product in terms of private space. They have actually the largest amount of private space to do presentations in. But everyone who we saw there, Tag Heuer had a remarkable 33 meeting rooms. We were obviously in one having our product presentation, but they have 33 because that reflects their retail distribution. They need to see all those people over the week. And so you're like, yeah, that's absolutely right. Like the very best clients. And so one of the things we're thinking about doing next year is basically doing a bit of coordination for that. So if somebody is already thinking of going and is already a VIP of one brand or more than one brand and knows that the brand will host them, that's perfect. They can go and enjoy that experience, but we'll then help them with the rest of their time there. So they're not just, let's say it's Tag Heuer and they're a collector of Tag Heuer and they go and Tag Heuer say, oh, would you like to come on the Thursday, which is a non-public day? Absolutely fantastic. They'll go, they'll have their experience with Tag Heuer and they'll have a wonderful time. But then they'll be in the show. They'll have access to the show for the rest of that day. Then we will hopefully be able to help them make the most of that day. So that's one of the things we're looking into for next year, for example. And then maybe if they're a club member and happy for it to happen, other club members can benefit from some of that access. So again, that's where we're saying we're a community as well as, in this case, just a sort of trip organizer, and hopefully the whole community as we grow over time will benefit.
Sounds good.
I would love to know how many of the VIP clients that get sort of ferried around the city by the brands end up buying stuff at the weekend. So we have a friend who is he buys a lot of, I'm not sure you'd put him up as a Zenith collector, but he buys a lot of Zenith watches. And we saw him on the Thursday morning last year. And yeah, he had been given a ticket to the Wednesday and the Thursday private days by Zenith and had felt compelled to buy a watch. And whether that's just him or whether that's just getting carried away by the whole sort of spectacle of it all. So I would love to know how successful that is. Whenever people get these sort of special experiences, you always feel more compelled to buy or to get close to buying. So I'd love to know what their conversion is for.
I would think it's very close to 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think, because we're not talking about being invited to a boutique for a glass of champagne and to see something they've got in. We're talking about, in some cases, the brands will fly the clients there and pay for their hotel. So I think there is an understanding, but the people that they fly in and pay for their hotel are already spending regularly a large amount every year with that brand. So yeah, I think there's that. But I agree. What will be interesting over time as our community grows and as we do this a few more times is to see, what different people's experiences are with if they've got a great relationship with the brand and they can organize that kind of thing and we can help them. What happens? Because I mean, one of the guys on the trip, he had a great trip. He was enthusiastically buying watches during his weekend away, and he got a session with Zenith actually that we didn't organize. He organized, and he ended up being hosted by the president of their North American business, who, essentially impressed him so much he did make a purchase there and then, and he was delighted with it. And so I think and a lot of, I think, to Vratta's point, we were handling watches that had already been sold. We went to see this brand called Ferdinand Burr 2, which is a very unusual brand because it's very high horology. It doesn't have very many watches, but it does a lot of publicity. And it does a lot of publicity because of who owns it and its owner's belief that they want to promote the brand more than they need to sell the watches, as in they already sell the watches out every year. So we went and we experienced that despite the fact that they'd easily already sold all the watches, like basically before the show had even started. And yet they do the whole show and we enjoyed it. And I think that's quite kind of fun as well. But I presume that for that brand, because I think they only make 50 a year, right? So this is not a brand that we saw in the little show we were talking about at the start. This is a brand that takes a stand at the very biggest show, but only has 50 timepieces to sell a year. in total. So um, it's a privilege to see them. But I do suspect quite a few of their clients then swing by because the client's saying, "Oh, look, well, these guys are putting all this effort in, so I should go." So it works both ways in that scenario. I would think. I mean, one day maybe we'll come across someone who's an owner and collector. But it is very interesting how that works as well. What would you do differently next time, Ed? Not
Um,
necessarily differently, but what would you change slightly or evolve?
yeah, I think Sunday actually ended up being my favorite day where we had these sort of sessions back to back, jam packed in the morning because it's a really overwhelming, like the whole thing is overwhelming. So
It
yeah,
can
you
be,
get
yeah.
up at eight,
It's
yeah,
definitely a big show.
and you get up at 8 o'clock in the morning and you go to bed at 1 a.m.
Well, we did.
and
We did, yeah.
yeah, and it's full on, right? And I think what I really enjoyed about the Sunday morning was we sort of did appointment after appointment after appointment. So we did sort of four back to back. So you had this really jam-packed, yeah, everything like really forced in. You had no time to think. It was just, yeah, have a really fun time. And then it was sort of, right, decompress, go and like explore. I quite liked that sort of intense, get lots of stuff done and then have free time to explore. Whereas the other way you do it is you sort of have an appointment every
Hmm.
2 or 3 hours and you drag the day out over a long period. So I think that sort of short, condensed thing. What I particularly enjoyed this year was we saw more of the, yeah, I think you've both described it as the sort of the brands that didn't really need to be there, that, the watches that you're never going to be able to buy, that you'll never see again. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, because that was just fun to look at watches. It was why do I collect watches? Because I like them and I like exploring them with my mates, and that's what I got to do. Um, and it was nice to see. I think it's always good to see some of the brands that people don't expect to be great being great. So yeah, Mont Blanc being a great example. It was a shame that Bell and Ross didn't work out quite so well because it's another brand that lots of people don't give them the time of day that they probably should have. Yeah, they make pretty watches at a sensible price point. They've got a lovely story. They're really nice on the wrist. So I think maybe more time with those, yeah, with those sort of like the brands you wouldn't necessarily give the time to otherwise. I'd probably also go into the show later. So the morning is always completely mad. So everyone goes in the morning and they leave about 2 o'clock. And by kind of 2:33, the show really quietens down and it's a really pleasant place to be. So I think more kind of afternoon time in the show is worth doing. But then all the just more of the stuff around the city. So a lot of the brands that you see in the show you can see throughout the year. You might not be able to get a hold of the watches, but you can definitely go look at them in the window. But all the stuff around the city is just, knowing which things are worth going to see and spending the time is really fun.
Yeah, and I think that's one of my big takeaways from thinking about and seeing how the group um, enjoyed the weekend was we could have given more context to all those other things for people to make a choice more easily. So what I mean is, as we've mentioned earlier, like going to see the AHCI exhibition was pretty extraordinary. If you were sort of primed for that level of horology and some of those people. So I wasn't at all primed personally for the watchmakers to be there. I just didn't think they would be there. I thought they'd have a lackey, displaying their incredible timepieces, and I wasn't sure what you'd get to handle because of the value of some of them and things like that. So even I was sort of slightly nonplussed to be actually talking to these watchmakers and didn't have much to say to them because I hadn't really thought about it. Um, so that made me think, oh gosh, right, well, if I was going to spend next year go there for 90 minutes again, then I'm actually going to have a little bit of a think if I wanted to speak to any of the watchmakers, and if they happen to be there, then I could ask some questions and whatnot. So and that's me learning, but also then I can now, because I'm organizing next year's trip, I will warn the people who come along in much more detail, not warn them, but tell them in much more detail what each thing is, that we might be going to. So they have more ability to opt in and out, which is the sort of goal of designing the itinerary. And then, yeah, the point about the big show, I think my view on how we do the big show in the future is many more appointments. So I think you have, to some extent, you're right, Ed, in that because the show is so big and the weekend is quite busy. Like this year, the Saturday, they like ran out of food. That's how busy it was. So I actually think they'll make it a bit less busy next year. So it's just finding the right way to book and schedule the appointments and have different people who want to go to different things opt in. So I think that's my goal for next year, which is not that easy because the brands are very slow to come back to me when I'm like, we've got this many people, we'd like to come and see you. And it's not their fault. It's because the brands are like, trying to deal with people from all over the world, and different people in the brands have different responsibilities for booking different parts of the week. So it's not that easy, but I'm not saying that to complain. I'm just saying like that I'll just have to work harder and earlier on it all and be much more clearer with them about what we're trying to do. So that's how we're going to do it. Ben, I guess you've got a question for us in general, I suspect.
Yeah, not so much a question. It's more to circle back to Ed's point. Is I actually did go to Geneva. I was there on the Saturday, and I did a morning fly in and a nighttime flight back. So I
Wow.
did just the day of the show.
We didn't see you.
Yeah, I tried to get in touch with some of the members and see if there was anyone there, but yeah, wasn't so easy to meet up with some people. I did see Rob the American, but
oh, good, yeah.
So he was in an appointment with me, so it was good that I had at least one person that I was familiar with, and yeah, just to circle back on that, I think the point of getting there in the afternoon and doing the afternoon session was vital because obviously I'd heard the morning is quite crazy. So what I did instead was I'd been to Geneva a couple of times, so just went straight into the town centre or the city centre in the morning. Did that, knew that my first appointment was at 1:00, and then just went into the show after 1, and it was so much quieter, and it was, yeah, I would just say that it was a great adventure to go with, and hopefully next year, if I save the pennies a little bit more, I'll be able to come with you guys and do the full 4 days instead of just doing a lastminute.com flight out and back. But to issue your point, from my viewpoint, I'm coming from it from a disability perspective. I have lost quite a large amount of my eyesight, so actually getting around the show and seeing the brands there was very, very easy. Everybody was accommodating. The accessibility features to get into the event was so straightforward and simple. So just from a different viewpoint and a different world, that was also taken into consideration, where some places on the continent don't really take that accessibility as well as we do in the UK. But also they did look after people there, so there was always people there to ask. So if people had those questions in the future, that's what I would say is it's a very accessible place to go. And to hit on your point is, even if you don't have appointments or are a very special client to them, you still want to buy a watch, which I've put my name down for one at the show. So yeah, you still end up buying them even if you're not a VIP.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that. We did have a member who came with us last year who had he's a wheelchair user at times as well. So, and he actually found them a little confused at first, but he still had a good time. And so he managed quite well in the end. But yeah, so thanks for sharing that.
No problem.
Which brand did you make an order from?
So I just got confirmed yesterday or the day before that I've got a ultra fine actress Grand Seiko allocation.
Oh.
So
congratulations!
Congratulations!
Yeah, lucky to get one of those. If I had the money, I did have an appointment with Vacheron, but I don't have the money for any of their novelties. If they brought out a stainless 270th anniversary watch, then I probably would have put everything else on hold this year. But yeah, precious metals are not in the price range at this moment. So
same.
yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what the Tudor F1 watch will be, which should be not this weekend, the weekend after for Miami Grand Prix. So I'm interested to see that because they had a little, just for people's benefit, they had a countdown clock saying there's a new watch coming, and no more vagueness than that, other than the fact that that day falls on the 2nd of May, which is the Miami Grand Prix. So hopefully there'll be something there.
It'll be yes. Oh, sorry, Barty, you've got your hand up.
Yeah. I just had actually. I'm going through the photos here as we speak, and a couple of highlights from the AHCI, because obviously meeting the watchmakers and the creators, that's brilliant on its own. But we were able to see the world's thinnest watch by Konstantin Chaikin because he had it there, and
Did he?
Yep, and he had the top face sort of off, so you could see inside the movement. And that's exactly the watch that is going to be auctioned, I think by Philips or someone. Well, just a couple of stands next to him was Masahiro Kikuno, the Japanese independent watchmaker, and who famously he made the Japanese Seasons watch. There's a documentary about it, and he's only ever made 4, and he had one of those there. And he basically didn't bring anything new. He's done these 4 watches of these Japanese Seasons. Then he was sort of presenting like a half-made chiming watch that he was sort of jokingly saying about it that sorry, not working yet, still working on it. And that's the spirit. But he still came, and you were able to see him and chat to him, and that was the spirit of the AHCI. Like, you can chat and take a picture and just like pick a brain of these absolute heroes of the contemporary thing. And yeah.
Well, it's funny because when we were there, we met Sven Anderson, and we got Hamish and I tried on the World Timer, which was the very first high horology brand that the two of us had tried on. So, God, how many years ago? 8 years ago at Salon QP in London. Which at the time was a wonderful show. It was all these sort of brands that didn't really do shows popped up into the Saatchi Gallery and put on this wonderful exhibition. And Urban Jurgensen were there. Somebody, like, one of the random things they had was somebody had taken the entire collection of Dirty Dozen military watches. They just found a collector who had the full set for no reason other than just to show them off, which was lovely. And then Sven Anderson was there and showed off this beautiful World Timer, which we got to see again in its new guise, which has got these beautiful baguette cut sapphires around the bezel. And it was lovely to see a watch that sort of made me fall in love with high-end watches and see it again and still be absolutely in love with it and still can't afford it. Oh, how 8 years hasn't changed my bank balance.
I should point out that you have acquired a fair number of watches in those intervening 8 years.
That is true. I think I should have not bought. I think if I hadn't bought anything else, I probably would have been able to buy it. But I think. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I was looking at this the other day, having just got my Zing watch insurance quote for all the sort of things I had bought over the years, and if I sold them all, I'd be able to buy one really nice independent watch, and I'd have to be like Johnny Hughes and just wear something super fancy on a daily basis. But for me, that's not what it's about. It's like having fun things that I enjoy, and that was it. It was a great weekend to explore that.
And when it comes to the high-end brands, they're not just concentrated, in Palexpo or AHCI. In Time to Watches, we experienced Cryon, my sort of Grail brand. I was lasting to see that, and it just lived up to the expectation. It was absolutely brilliant, Breva, but it was then you had Ming presenting. Obviously, you had the British brands, you had Fizz, you had Anorday and Poland. So all these shows had lots of sort of good mix of from the affordable to the highest events.
Yeah, we actually started with Formex on the first thing Thursday morning, and Raphael, who's the CEO, I'd bumped into him the day before when I arrived and said, "Oh, we're coming to see you first." And he goes, "Oh, I better do a good talk then and not drink too much tonight. And he actually gave us a really great intro, because he told his story. He was very clear about where he'd come from, what he was trying to do, and they have a great range of watches that are very, very reasonably priced. Much more accessible brand than many of the brands we've talked about so far this evening. And yeah, that's absolutely right, Vrata, that there is so much to see. And yeah, it was why I'm so excited about this trip. I can spend however much time I spend organizing next year's trip. I'm already excited about both the organization and the trip itself because, we've got great people coming along. We've got this amazing variety of things to do and see. It's probably going to rain next year because it was sunny every day this year, but what's a little bit of rain when we're indoors looking at watches? People like Ben managed a day trip, but actually it's now okay, well, that's whetted my appetite. Can I make it work next year? And we aren't ever going to be travel agents, but I'm already getting questions from random people emailing about hotels and stuff. So I think when we launch the trip, which will be in early autumn, much earlier this year, we'll give guidance on that as well because we do have views about what people can do about that. And so yeah, that we will do the same but better. And the thing we're most unsure about, personally and in conversation from the club's perspective, is how to grow in terms of number of people and stuff. But we'll just have conversations over the next few months and we'll work it out. That's basically the answer.
I think that'll be tough because I think what I enjoyed was the personal element of it.
Yeah.
So how do you keep it personal, but at the same time, broaden it?
Yeah, and I don't want to get to the
so...
point where I'm literally the tour rep with the clipboard.
Yeah.
That's not realistic for this kind of trip. It is going to always be more of a trip where you can come and meet people and start to make friends, and as you say, start to learn about what other people are into and really appreciate that. And I think it's facilitating that as well. Obviously, it's not what everyone wants. There were, a couple of people on the trip who weren't as social, which is absolutely fine. But yeah, that's obviously a key part. This is a club and a community first and a business latterly. And so it's making sure that's true in every aspect. And and again, that's why Ed and I do this. We want to share these experiences. Neither of us is the type of person who thinks that the opportunities and experiences we have are just for us and private. The whole point of this is to say, look, by making these more sharing these experiences is better for all concerned. It's better for us as a community, but it's also better for the brands to show themselves off to more people more efficiently.
I think talking about brands, it would be great to see some more. I think there is a region where there are some key brands. I think a couple of members did visit, I think, AP, and I think in that region there are a couple of others as well. So
there's three main watchmaking cities, four kind of thing, in Switzerland. So yeah, there's not other trips are in the long-term plan for the club, but it's literally just how we work it out,
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, it might be too much for that Watches and Wonders weekend to fit all that in, but like I said,
and the my geography isn't great in that they don't want to do anything at the manufacturer in that week. They don't want, so they don't really, unless you're again super VIP.
Yeah,
so you'd have to do it on the Monday afterwards, which would be
which a couple of people on the trip did do. So two people stayed on the Monday and went elsewhere and went to other manufacturers. Yeah, and I think, but just for your perspective, Sinead, if we're going to do a trip of that kind, the first year we'll try and do it is next year, hopefully, and it would be in the autumn.
Okay.
And we'll start taking research about what shape the trip looks like. We'll start questioning more people about that.
Cool. Look forward to hearing more about it.
The obvious shape of it is basically 2 nights and maybe sort of 3-ish days.
Some of those regions actually look amazing as well. Where you
Yeah.
think of Switzerland,
Yeah.
they are like that.
Yeah,
like
the valley.
Geneva didn't have the, what people think of the snow-capped mountains and this and that. But yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be nice to combine some of that with it as well. So if you have to add another night, and it makes sense for you guys to logistically do it, why not? I'll be up for that. But you got to think of it as a group.
Yeah, and it's just, look, I mean, we say it very clearly because it's important, but it's a very expensive place to do anything.
That's true. It's
Yeah.
I learned that very quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Get saving now.
Well, so we usually keep
Sure.
these things roughly to an hour. So I guess to finish up, was there any other questions about the trip from those who didn't come this year, or was there anything anyone else wanted to say about the experience? Not at this stage. Great. Well,
Cool.
yeah, no, thank you all. I hope you've enjoyed that chat. It's flown by as ever. Thank you for your kind words about how much you enjoyed the trip, Junaid and Vrata. And yeah, just for me to say, I hugely enjoyed it. I hugely enjoyed organizing it as well. So I am genuinely excited about next year. People can, if they're interested, register their interest on our website. We've already got over 30 people registered keen to come, and someone's emailed me today asking about hotels, as I said. So we're going to work it out. We're going to work it out over the summer, and we'll launch the trip in the autumn of this year. So thank you, everybody. Cool. And
yeah,
I shall see many of you at an event very soon.
Yes, see you guys soon.
Cheerio, everyone.
Cheers. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.